All right, everybody, welcome to Firth for Bear Lake football on a beautiful Friday night. We set up outside on purpose tonight. It's a gorgeous night. We're in the stands, so hopefully that won't affect the camera too much as the game gets going and the fans get excited. But we're ready for a game that's been on the calendar for both teams, like circled on the calendar for both teams since last November. This is a rematch of the state championship game. The Bear Lake Bears set to take on the Firth Cougars on a beautiful Friday night. I can guarantee, though, last November when both teams circled this matchup, we didn't expect that combined the teams would have one win on the season. Bears 0-2, Firth coming in at 1-1. But that's what we got. The JV just played half of a game tonight. Firth got limited numbers this year, so they only played 2 quarters, and the final score, Firth 12, Bear Lake 6.
And honestly, the offensive showing by both teams in that was more impressive than the final score would say. A lot of great catches on both sides. Game-winning touchdown for Firth was just an amazing toe-tap catch. Honestly, great offensive showing by both teams, even though the score doesn't really show that as much.
And it's hard really to get the flow of a game in 2 quarters, but it was fun. All right, let's talk about what happened last week for these two teams and then look ahead to tonight and maybe even talk a little bit about next week. Last week, the Bear Lake Bears were in Lyman, of course. Lyman is ranked number 1 in the state over there in Wyoming at the 2A level, and Lyman came away with the victory 28-7. Meanwhile, Firth was in Soda Springs and picked up a win 19-14. Talked to some people as we got here tonight, and they said Soda was driving potentially for the go-ahead game-winning touchdown. Firth came up with a big defensive stop to win that game and to get their first win on the season. Their first game of the season, they played the Westside Pirates, and that game did not go well for Firth. They lost that one 48-0. So that's last week for both teams. Coming up this week, obviously, Bear Lake versus Firth. Other games of interest last week, Aberdeen got bumped by Declo 55-28. That's a pretty lopsided score. Aberdeen is a team that will play later in the season. Let's see, Westside played Layton Christian High School down in Layton, Utah, and lost that one 54-44. Not a lot of defense in that game.
That's actually closer to a basketball score than a football score there, Jared.
So Westside on the season has scored an average of 46 points a game, and they're 1-1. But they've given up 54-1 and 0 on the other. So tell of 2 different games. Malad picked up their second win of the season. They're 2-1-0. They beat Ryrie 12-8. Ryrie's 1-1 on the season. They beat Soda Springs to start the year, lost to Malad last week. And Malad picked up their loss. Their lone loss was at Lyman 2 weeks ago, just before Bear Lake played. So Malad is fairly comparable, I think, to Bear Lake right now as far as on paper. We'll see when it actually comes to matchups because sometimes it's very dramatically different. But on paper, that's a matchup that should be fairly close contest. Games of interest. So that's what happened last week. Let's look ahead to tonight, if I can find the right paper here. Tonight, Aberdeen is going to try to get back on track. They're taking on South Fremont as Nate's getting attacked by bees. Now I'm getting attacked by bees.
It's because you got those cougar beaver tail thingies.
They're the cougar tails.
Oh.
So Firth has these giant. They copied BYU, and I'm saying that as a compliment to Firth, not as a. And they have these giant
beaver tails,
maple bars called cougar tails, as they are the Firth Cougars. They're about over a foot long.
Oh yeah.
We may or may not have purchased 2 of them pregame. Lisa, yes, I'll try to save you some.
And it's a lot cooler here because you don't have to go to Provo to get these.
Anyway, moving on. Bear Lake from Firth, obviously that's the game we're at. And then Westside, the Pirates, at 1-1, are taking on Marsh Valley, who's 0-2 on the season so far. Westside in Marsh Valley tonight. And then Malad taking on North Fremont. So that's kind of a measuring tape game for Bear Lake to see how Malad does against North Fremont. That's the second common opponent of the season for Bear Lake and Malad. The first game, almost identical scores against Lyman. We'll see how they do against North Fremont now. And then the last team in the district, Soda Springs, is at home for Snake River. Snake River coming in at 1-2 on the season. So you look at that conference that we're going to move into next year, and American Falls 0-2 on the season, Marsh Valley 0-2 on the season, Snake River 1-2 on the season. So, next year doesn't look quite as scary as it could look. The other teams aren't really looking that dominant in the division we're about to move up to next year. So if you haven't heard, if you're just joining us and I don't know where you've been the last, year, we are going to be 4A next year. Now we're not jumping 2 divisions. They are realigning all of Idaho high school sports. We're going to move up a division we were going to anyway, and because they're renaming the divisions, it looks like we're jumping 2 divisions, but next year we'll be in 4A, and it will be the same teams as what is 3A this year. So,
yep. Well, looking forward, right? I mean, Bear Lake, it's very obvious the last couple of weeks. They're rebuilding. They're trying to get their feet underneath of them. But when you jump up those to the next level, right, the next division, it looks like they're going to be pretty competitive. And so if they can get this year under their belt, get some wins pulled off here, and really start to grow and learn as a team, there's no doubt that they can be super competitive next year.
Absolutely. It's not quite as scary as you might think, hey, Bear Lake's on having a down year, and then next year they got to go up. That's scary. It may not be quite as bad as it could be. Good thought there, Tyler. Cross country is right now here in the area. They competed in the Tiger Grizz tournament in Idaho Falls today. So the cross-country team are also in the area. And then volleyball here is in Idaho Falls as well, just up the road at the Triple Threat Tournament sponsored by Thunder Ridge High School. They probably have completed their first game of the tournament. They have 3 games tonight, and then they'll play 3 or 4 games again tomorrow. So all of the Bear Lake High School athletic teams in the Idaho Falls area. This Firth is, 25, 30 minutes down the road? Yeah, Tyler, you grew up here. You know this better than I do. Middle school cross country is at home tomorrow. They're running at North Beach. So if you want to fight the loaded traffic, instead of that, go east side.
There you go.
If you're headed from Montpelier. But the North Beach for the middle school cross country, the girls will run at 10 tomorrow. The boys at 10:20. They're at North Beach for middle school cross country. That's what's going on tonight and this weekend. Should we look at some college sports and do some pick 'em?
I like it.
Okay, we're gonna talk college sports because we all disagree on this. So, Utah State.
Oh boy,
Tyler, your Aggies actually looked not too bad last week. They lost 24-14, but that was at Iowa, and Iowa's ranked in the top 25.
Right.
So that's not a horrible loss on the road to a ranked team. Not too bad. They have ISU tomorrow. You gonna pick your?
I'm always gonna pick them. They could be playing, Alabama. I'm still gonna pick them to win, even though that I'm just a hopeful, I guess.
No, I think I agree with you. That's a win. But Idaho State actually played with San Diego State last week. Gave them a game.
And that's what's crazy. I think that hopefully Utah State is not overlooking ISU. Like I feel like most years they look past them like, oh, we got this, whatever. But it looks like ISU is here to play.
Okay. I mean, historically, you look at Utah State, and they always play down to little brother. Weber State last year, 35-7, in a way that you wouldn't have previously thought. But this is also little brother to Weber State, so I'm going to say Utah State. But I think it's going to be a close game within a couple of scores. Yeah, and that's not a knock necessarily on Utah State. That's a compliment to Idaho State, who's actually, having a pretty good year so far. Especially coming off of that 1-10 season last year. They look really solid coming out and kind of making a statement against San Diego State. I wouldn't say, obviously you lost, but a moral victory to some extent. Just not a great historical franchise, but so far,
not too bad.
Not too bad.
All right, let's go with a team that also pulled off an upset last week. Didn't just almost, but did. Wyoming had that double overtime win against Texas Tech. And they have Portland State tomorrow. What's your odds there? Can Portland State come in there as an FCS team and actually give Wyoming a game?
Give me Wyoming by 49, Jared. If Oregon can beat that team 81-7, so much that their mascot, the duck, almost died. Did like 642 push-ups. I think Wyoming's going to go in there and take care of business at home.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
100%.
Yeah. Let's see. Boise State. Boise State lost to Washington 56-19 last week. Not such a good showing for the Broncos. They have UCF tomorrow at home.
I don't know.
I'm going to maybe be criticized for this for the Boise State fans, and I'm trying to think logically. This is not anti-Boise State, but after 56 to 19. UCF is no Washington, but UCF is also no pushover. I got to go UCF.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to take UCF by 7, and I'm a Boise State fan, but after the showing against Washington, and
Or the
just
lack of showing against Washington.
and really just being like realistic with myself, I think UCF comes in and takes a great victory on the road.
I agree. I mean, I'd hate to just be that guy. But you're absolutely right. Boise State struggled last week. Hopefully, this week in practice they can maybe come up with something and at least make it a game. But I would agree they're going to lose. And
in their defense, a little bit, Washington is better this year. Washington's been down for the last several years, but Washington is nationally ranked, expected to be good. So. But
we'll
I just think they're too far down.
Well, and I mean it in the nicest way, but Boise State football isn't quite the juggernaut they were 10 years ago. You don't have Kellen Moore at quarterback anymore, and you don't have Jared Zabransky. Quite frankly, they're just not quite what they used to be. Still a good football team, but not quite at the level of competitiveness that they once were, so I would take UCF.
Not to go on a tangent, but you're right. They're not the same football team they used to be because my Cowboys haven't drafted anybody from Boise State for a hot minute, and it seems like that was their go-to team there for a while.
Yeah, you got some good players out of Boise State. So let's go to 2 games left. Utah, last week, 24-11 over Florida. Offensively, you take out the first play of the game, Utah struggled. Their first play of the game was a 70-yard touchdown. You take those yards off the board, Utah's offense really didn't show out, but they did pick up a win, and Florida's traditionally a good team. This week, they have to go to Baylor. Now, Baylor was picked to be one of the best teams in the country and lost at home to the high school team.
I think so.
West Texas, or are they? I don't even know. Are they FCS, FBS, Nate?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So
the point is they didn't do very well.
Yeah. So now here's the question: were they overlooking the team they played last week because they know Utah's going to come in ranked in the top 15, and they were looking for this game?
Maybe.
I don't see that being a fluke loss, Jared. I'm going to take U of U in this game at home. Is it at home or is it at Baylor?
It's at Baylor.
So it's at Baylor, but I'm still going to take Utah in this one. Not even because of the local fan, but you had your second string and third string quarterbacks in Barnes and the other guy against Florida, and you took care of business. If Rising's back, I don't see Baylor coming out and beating that team.
I have to disagree. I kind of side with what Jared's last comment was, and I think that Baylor overlooked that high school team, if you will, and I think that we'll see a completely different Baylor team this week.
And if there's any West Texas fans out there, and I'm not even sure if it was West Texas, I think that's who it was, didn't watch the game. We're not trying to make fun of them. I didn't even know there was such a school. So
we're all shocked.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tyler, and I wasn't just
you would, Jared.
The BYU fan in me can't ever choose Utah, but I do think Baylor was overlooking West Texas. Looking at this game, they've had it circled. If you've been on social media at all, the back and forth between Utah and Baylor started in about January, and it intensified when the Utah Utes got invited to be in the Pac-12 next year. Not the Pac-12. When they leave the Pac-12, be in the Big 12 next year. The back and forth only intensified. I think Baylor is better than it looked like last week. I think Baylor was overlooking because they had this game circled. So I'm going to say a close game, but going down to Texas,
I think Jared's going to go ahead and pick against Utah in every game because he's mad that they're in the Big 12 and he has to watch his poor BYU
nothing to do with them being in the Big 12.
Every game to him.
It doesn't matter what conference they're in. I'm going to pick against them. But I'm being sincere. I do think it'll be a good game. I won't be surprised if Utah pulls it out. I just think I got to go with Baylor in this one. And last one.
Oh, boy, this is my favorite one. I can already tell. I'm sure I got boatloads to say on this.
I'm going to be in the minority. Well, I think we'll all choose the same team winning. I think the comments are going to be different. BYU picked up their first win of the season.
Offensive juggernaut, man.
They beat Sam Houston. And I will be fair. I criticized Utah's offense, said that they struggled other than that one drive. BYU didn't even have that one play. They didn't have the big 70-yard play to pad their stats. They struggled offensively. They had 2 drives that ended in touchdowns, and they struggled offensively. On a positive note for my Cougars, it's been a long time since BYU's defense looked like they could stop anybody, and they pulled off the shutout.
Oh, I mean, you're beating a team in the Conference USA there, Jared. Congrats on that one. Shutting out.
I didn't say they beat
a
a great team.
Division III high school team. I'm really proud of you. But I mean, I just want to emphasize how bad this game was. I mean, it was like 7-0 at halftime. I fall asleep during baseball games. I don't fall asleep during football games. I fell asleep during this game, and that should tell you something. It's like watching like a full marathon of like the Golden Girls would have been better.
Oh, see, I disagree. I didn't fall asleep because anybody that knows me knows my love for BYU, and so I enjoyed watching them.
Runs about as deep as my love for Utah. if you all didn't sense the sarcasm there.
So no, I think BYU is going to win.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't ever say it's Southern Utah. They're playing Southern Utah, an FCS school.
Yeah. So I think that they're going to come out with a win there. I hope they do a little bit better of a showing than that first game. They've got to set the pace early, moving like they did, and yeah. But
I'll be completely honest with you. I'm going to take BYU. I mean, you've got to play better offensively than you did last week. But I mean, I would give them. I would say it's going to be something like 21-7, 28-7, like we had talked about earlier. I think that's a fair assumption. This offense is relatively new, and they've struggled. Brand new quarterback, brand new everything, really. And I'm going to take BYU by like 14.
So I will say Southern Utah, to give a little bit of preview, did play Arizona State last week, and gave Arizona State all they wanted, had a chance to win the game towards the end. And so I do think Southern Utah is a legitimate team. I hope my Cougars are taking them seriously. With that said, I am excited at what the BYU defense showed me, because in the last several years it's been hard to cheer for BYU because of their defense. And I think their offense is just new, a lot of new pieces trying to fit into the puzzle, and their two top receivers were out last week. I hope, and I'm going to stay hopeful, as I always will, that they will pull it out.
And I find it fascinating, too, just how big of a 180 that is in like 1 to 2 seasons, where you go from a defense that really couldn't stop a nosebleed and an offense that scored a bunch of touchdowns. Zach Wilson and Jaron Hall, both phenomenal quarterbacks.
Both in the NFL right now.
Yeah, not the biggest BYU fan, but I will give that up. You've created some phenomenal athletes and phenomenal football players, but To see that 180 to a defensive juggernaut in the last game and offensively kind of subsiding was really crazy to me.
Okay, so we all picked. So the only one we disagreed with was Baylor and Utah. And Tyler and I went Baylor, and Nate, you went Utah.
We should keep track of these over the weeks and see how many we get right and keep an overall record.
Oh, I agree. Do you have your wallet too? Maybe we can.
Hey, okay, let's shift gears. Let's take actually a 60-second break. And when we come back, we'll give you the keys to our game here from Firth, as the Bear Bears set to take on the Firth Cougars. About 7.5 minutes left in the pregame warm-up. We'll come back with the keys to the game and kickoff right after this on the SVI Sports Network.
Wherever your outdoor adventure takes you, stop first at You Save Phillips 66 in Montpelier. Phillips 66 helps you live to the full on your next off-road adventure, fishing trip, or the next time you go hunting, camping, or hiking. And at You Save, you'll find so much more than fuel. Fill up on all the snacks and drinks that you need for the entire trip. That's You Save Phillips 66 in Montpelier, where it's your convenience, our pleasure.
We take all the decisions and explain them and make it easier for everybody to understand.
We bring a uniqueness to it, and we try to make sure everything is positive and happy and people have a good experience.
People come in and sign the papers and they leave and they're happy, they get the house. I like that.
When we hand you that deed to your home, there's not going to be anything that's going to come up later that's going to hurt.
Welcome back to Firth. Getting ready for Bear Lake football here on a gorgeous Friday night from Firth. The Bears running through their offensive set, getting ready for the game. Firth on the opposite end doing that same thing. Let's talk about keys to the game. Our insert your sponsorship here, keys to the game, as we don't have a pregame sponsor yet this year. And let's start with you, Nate. Go for it. What's your keys to the game?
You've got to win the battle in the trenches, quite frankly. We've got a few key offensive linemen missing with injuries, and It's been a rough showing the first couple of weeks. Just a growing team, young team. They're going to make mistakes, and especially on the line, losing a center, losing a few key linemen. But moving forward, you've got to win the battle on the trenches if you want to win this game. Go out there and just take over on the line, and we can get things done.
I agree. In fact, I think that was my key to the game last week. We had to win the battle of the trenches. I do think that the offensive line looked a little bit better last week. Defensive line still struggled. There are at least one, and we'll see, but I think two of our normal starting offensive linemen out this week. I'm just looking for numbers down there to see if because the one was kind of a possibility, but it doesn't make it any easier when you lose two of your starters, and that's where you were struggling anyway.
Yeah, well, and one of the starters, if I'm not mistaken, is the center.
Yes.
Right, and that is a crucial position, especially that first game when the Bears were playing. They had some wonky snaps, and so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, Chris Pratt stepping up. He's been the JV center. He'll be the center tonight.
And I mean, defensively, like you said, the line was the main killer. Lyman has a great run game, and it was tough to stop with the trenches the way they were. I mean, two great athletes run that offense, and Bear Lake had a hard time stopping the run. Secondary played good, but we got to win the battle of the trenches on both sides of the ball, just like you said.
Okay, let's go. Tyler, what's your key to the game tonight?
I feel like we're kind of switching around our keys to the game. We're all saying the same thing and a little bit different. Mine is going to be more about mentality and heart. What I saw last week, it looked like, a very unfortunate game for Bear Lake to start out, right? Lyman comes out, scores 2 touchdowns right off the bat.
Yeah, before Bear Lake has the ball.
Yeah, one off of just a fluke, right? But Bear Lake hung in there. But then towards the end, there was a few mistakes made, interception, things like that. And from my point of view, it looks like they kind of gave up. And so I'd say my key to the game today is to play to the last whistle. I mean, you're not. It's not over till it's over, and win the battle in the trenches. Go out there and just play with everything you got.
Well, and like Tyler said, you come out early, go down to a team 14-0 out of the beginning. It's rainy, it's cold, it's wet, and you've been kicked in the mouth. It's hard to keep that winning attitude up, but you've got to come out here and just have that winner's mentality and that fire in your gut, and come out here and win this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say my key to the game, because it's a continuation and building on Tyler's. The season starts tonight. Those first 2 games don't matter. North Fremont and Lyman kicked Bear Lake in the mouth, as you said. 2 great teams that beat Bear Lake up 28-6, 28-7, the 2 games. But neither one of those teams is a bad team. You lost 2 football games to 2 good teams in a year that we've already mentioned is a rebuilding year. So tonight the season starts. If the Bear Lake Bears can right the ship tonight, get a win against Firth in this rematch of the state championship, they still got some very winnable games. Looks like Aberdeen is beatable, and definitely Soda Springs and Malad are beatable. The Bears can still turn this season around and have a good season. And
I mean, along with what you're saying, these games are experimental games, right? I mean, the main record that matters is going to be your in-conference record with your conference teams. Outside of the conference, these games are kind of, I wouldn't say they're meaningless. I would just say that they're more... You've got time to figure out your offense, figure out your team, but I think you're right. Just come out here and you've got to win this football game, turn things around, get a more positive attitude going forward.
Yep, I think a lot to learn from the coaching staff, from the defense, from the offense. I think everybody stands something to learn, something to take with them as they roll forward into conference play.
And this is a game that is winnable. I mean, I know it's the rematch of the state championship from a year ago, but Firth is struggling in their first 2 games just as badly as Bear Lake is. In fact, offensively, Firth has got a total of 16 points on the season. Bear Lake has a total of 13. All of Firth's points came in 1 game as they got shut out in their first game against Westside, and they struggled last week to beat Soda Springs. Firth is struggling as well, so in no way is this. Are you saying, hey, this team was in 3 straight state championship games? What do you mean this is a winnable game? Firth is struggling as well, and so this is one where the Bears, if they come out, play with some pride, it's going to be a struggle. We mentioned the difficulties when you're missing a couple of your starters on offense, on the offensive line. It's going to be a struggle, but it's going to be also a doable game. So let's talk about rebuilding. Yeah, Bear Lake Bears, we've documented. They lost, in fact, 3 of the players they lost. Keaton Carlson, Tyler Beresford, and Brady Shaw sitting about 5 rows in front of us right now, not in uniform. They're visiting with people in the crowd. Those were big losses, along with Tayson Neal, who's currently on a mission, and others, many others. But Bear Lake's rebuilding, but so's Firth. Gone are the Vasquez boys. Alex and, in fact, he's listed on the coaching staff, and Gage Vasquez. Their two superstars, the Parks, are gone. The Park brothers are gone. They're a different team, too.
It's just crazy how much can change in a matter of like 10 months. This goes from two juggernaut teams that didn't – I mean, they both came out fighting, both didn't really remember how to lose, to two teams just trying to rebuild and find that winning identity and that winning DNA again. But I still think there's a lot to learn out here tonight. Both teams, relatively young, come out here, learn, and just play hard football. Play Bear Lake tough and come out here and win this one.
Yeah, Firth last year lost one game that was to a team other than Bear Lake. Bear Lake beat them twice in two very highly competitive games, once during the regular season in Bear Lake and then once in the state championship game. But other than that, Firth ran the table last year, only dropping their opening game to Westside was their only other loss, and Westside finished as the third-place team in the state. So they had a fantastic year last year, as did Bear Lake, but both teams are in a totally different spot this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what these two teams can do. So we're ready to go with the first game of the season at home for Firth. We'll take about a 2-minute break while they do the national anthem. It was really hard to see and hear on the TV, so we're going to take a break. We'll be back with the start of this game in 90 seconds on the SVI Sports Network.
The roar of our engines, the pump of our heartbeats, the pedal to our metal. The sparks that ignite us, the pistons that push us, the passions that drive us. From the feelings that move us to the places that pull us, on roads that unite us. Napa has America's largest network of parts and care, here to be the fuel that keeps you firing on all cylinders.
Live coverage of Bear Lake High School sports on SVI Media is made possible by Gary Tusher CPA, bookkeeping, tax returns, and payroll. Here to help. Stephen Hammond Dental, local family dentistry. Lenhard Beverages, proud to support the Bear Lake Bears. And you save Phillips 66. Live life to the full.
Welcome back to Firth High School. Both teams are ready to get this one started. The Bear Lake Bears set to take on the Firth Cougars. First home game for Firth on the season. This is the second week in a row for the Bear Lake Bears on the road after starting the season at home against North Fremont. And Firth dressed all in black with blue numerals and blue helmets. Good-looking uniforms out there. Bear Lake all in white with silver helmets and blue numerals. I'm going to say one thing. The team in blue is going to win.
Oh, okay.
You are correct. Both teams wear blue.
Both teams wear royal blue.
You sure are a wise man. You are a real Albert Einstein.
I stand to learn a lot from you. I can already tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
You talk about the Mount Rushmore of smart people. There's like Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, Abraham Lincoln, and Jared Hillier.
I agree.
All right, Toby Flake set to kick off for the Bear Lake Bears. Toby has got a dangerous weapon in his left leg. He has had a couple touchbacks already on the season, which is a huge weapon in high school football. Let's see what he can do. Back deep for the Firth Cougars. Number 5 is not going to get the ball. It's going to go actually to the other guy, number 12. I'll pick up his number in just a minute. It's Vasquez. He's going to make it out to about the 27-yard line. And I'll tell you, anytime you can keep a team inside the 30 in high school sports, it's a good kick. So great start for the Bears.
That was Grant Vasquez that ran that back.
So for the third week in a row out of 3 weeks, a very run-oriented offense, unless Firth comes out and surprises. But same coaching staff as last year, and they've been a run-oriented team for the last several years. And it's where Bear Lake struggled last week. So it'll be interesting to see what the Bears can do. The quarterback is Daryl Vasquez, a junior. Here's the snap. Give is to the fullback, and he's going to gain about 7 yards. That's Fisher Arnold, a junior running back. He'll go 7 yards off the left side. Second down and 3.
That was awesome. I got to give credit to the offensive line there. I mean, they opened up a hole that you could probably drive a freight train through. The Bears picked it up, but not, until 7 yards later.
A couple new faces out there for Bear Lake. Number 18 is Wiscombe, and he has been playing JV. This is his first varsity start on the season. He's out there as linebacker. Vasquez this time under center, still just gives it to his fullback right up the middle. And he'll go up the middle for about 4, pick up the first down. I didn't catch the number on the running back there.
I couldn't see it either.
Ringel, Bo Ringel, he's a junior, number 15 on that last carry. I just have to listen real close to the overhead announcer.
There you go.
So first down and 10, ball just across the 40 at about the 42-yard line. First opening drive of the game. And Vasquez this time not under center. He's in the shotgun. Height comes back. And that was a give to Arnold. Arnold going to pick up 5 yards. Just like the last 2 weeks, we're going to see a lot of the run.
Just going back to Nate's key of the game, Bear Lake is struggling. I mean, they've only ran it. It's early, and I understand that, but it's like, I mean, you've got to make a stand and really get in there and create some disturbance, or it's going to be a long night.
And unless they do something very different than they've done in the past, they put out a couple wide receivers to either side, but it's a smoke screen. They're going to run it 9 times out of 10. Vasquez is going to keep it himself this time. Just follow his blockers. This time, very little gain, just a gain of 1. It's going to bring up 3rd down and 4. Great pursuit by the right side of the Bear Lake line. Or sorry we're not giving you names on all these tackles. Sometimes it's very difficult to see. I believe Toby Flake was in on that one just because of where it was on the field. But it brings up 3rd down and 4.
Yeah, just another run play right off the edge. The defensive end did pretty well. He crashed a little bit, but very well pursued by the linebackers.
And they gave credit to Goostree on the overhead, so I'll give him credit. And I don't have number 51 on my roster. And that's who I saw in on the tackle as well. So here we go, 3rd down and 4. Big play earlier in this game. Vasquez right up the middle to Arnold. He's going to get the first down just barely. He needed 4. He got 4.5. Picks up the first down just across midfield into Bear Lake territory at the 47-yard line. First and 10. Firth continued to move the ball. Second first down pickup of the game. First several plays made it look easy. Those last 3 plays a little bit harder to come by. That's what we're looking for from Bear Lake, is to make it harder and harder to come by each time. You can bend, but you can't break. Well defended that time as Vasquez hands it to Arnold on the sweep, and he goes for no gain. Wiscombe in on that tackle.
That was an awesome pursuit there by Wiscombe. He came around, he broke down, had his head up, and he ran right into, or the running back ran right into him.
And Anderson came in to help on that tackle. A couple of sophomores starting on JV and getting the stop for no gain. In fact, I would say almost a yard loss once they finally get it completely marked. This brings up 2nd down and 11. Near side, the ball's on the near side hash mark. Arnold, the running back, got the left hip of the quarterback, Vasquez. Here's the snap. He's going to go to the right side, follows blockers, and gains about 5 yards. It still brings up 3rd and long.
Yeah, I mean, this is the situation Bear Lake wants, right? It's 3rd down, it's long. They've got something to prove here, as Nate brought up, and so here we go. Hopefully the defensive line can really get in there and create some disturbances in the backfield.
Hoyt Johnson, on that tackle. One thing that's impressive about this offense, and it's been the last 3 weeks we've seen it, is they're quite often very patient. And on that play, quarterback Vasquez just waited for the play to develop, waited for his blockers to do their job, and then followed him up the middle. Brings up 3rd down and a long 4.
Absolutely. Just assignment football, right? You're waiting for everybody to get their assignment.
Okay, here we go. 3rd down and 4. Another big 3rd down play. Vasquez in